Jace Lejeune of Gridiron Football. Jace, what's going on this morning, man?
Nothing much, buddy. What's going on, Taylor?
Not a whole lot. You're kind of leaving me out to dry this coming Friday night, but you know what? It's
Yeah.
payback. I missed the baseball game last Friday night. You're missing it this Friday, but look, we got the chit chat this week nonetheless. Jace, when spring practice starts, just kind of overall, whether it's a specific player, position group, whatever, what is the biggest thing you're going to be watching during spring practice?
Well, the biggest thing is actually probably the biggest storyline heading into spring practice, Taylor, and that's really the defensive line because LSU has been looking for really that constant presence at defensive line since Brian Kelly's really gotten here for a defensive line coach. And I believe with Jacoby Guillory, I think he's the seventh different defensive line coach he's going to work under since he's been here at LSU. So that's really the biggest storyline. You thought you had that with Bo Davis and, one of the best out there in the entire country. And now you're going to have to find a replacement for him heading to spring football as the Saints grab him away. So that's going to be the biggest storyline for me because you have a lot of new pieces on the defensive line, especially on the edges. So really looking at who the defensive line coach is going to be and who's going to really work with these guys. Hopefully we get an announcement pretty soon about that. But that's really the biggest thing I really got my eye out on who is going to be and how he works with these guys during spring.
As far as the spring practice goes, LSU is bringing in a heck of a lot of transfers that will be on the practice field coming up here shortly. As far as top transfers to keep an eye on, who are you going to be looking at?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on Patrick Payton, obviously the defensive end transfer from Florida State. Arguably the top gem when you talk about this transfer portal class for LSU. That was a huge get for the Tigers to get him in, and especially as a position of need. I mean, you lose both your defensive ends from last year, which was really a strength of this team last year. We talked about how well Braden Swinton and Savion Jones played last year. So I'm looking at him on the defensive side of the football, and LSU also got a couple other defensive end transfers too, as well. One from Nebraska, one from Florida too. So I'm looking at those two guys too. Offensively, the wide receivers are going to be something to watch out for. Barron Brown, I thought that was a big pickup for LSU from Kentucky because he does a lot of really good things, and especially he's been so successful as a kickoff return specialist for the Wildcats, and see what he can do as well. Give you an extra dimension on special teams, on the offensive side of the football. LSU's got playmakers all over the field, so seeing where he fits, I'm going to be very intrigued. And that's going to be an interesting, basically battle there too, because you have three capable guys that could bring it to the house on any given play. Whether it's Barron Brown, Davion Thomas, we've seen him do that, especially in the bowl game, and Aaron Aronson. So I'm very intrigued to see how he fits in all.
I mean, you just brought up the receivers, and that's one of the quote unquote battles in spring. That brings me right into it, like position battles for LSU. Whether it's receiver, whether it's that cornerback spot, safety is up for grabs. Like what spot are you watching as far as position battles?
I actually totally agree with you on the first two that you said. Literally wide receiver and cornerback. I mean, wide receiver, you always know that the talent's always there for LSU. And it is still talented. I mean, you have a pretty good mix of experienced guys, whether it's Aaron Anderson, Davion Thomas, Chris Hilton, and especially if Chris Hilton, that's always been the question about Chris. Can he stay healthy for going towards the fall? If he can do that, I mean, just to carry the momentum he had towards the end of the season, the game against Oklahoma, and then after that in the bowl game, he can be in for a big-time year, see how he fits. You also had a couple of transfers in as well. We talked about Barron Brown, Nick Anderson. He's shown some flashes. He had a great freshman year at Oklahoma, so his thing is staying healthy as well. And you add in the tight ends, Trey Green, and what kind of mismatch problem he is, Bauer Shop, Donovan Jackson, those guys like that. It's going to be a lot to look at when you talk about Donovan Green, but who are these guys that are going to be the receiving options for this team?
As far as some of the younger guys, Jace Lejeune with Gridiron Football joining us right now. As far as some of the younger guys coming in the spring, or a guy that maybe was on the team last year, redshirted for whatever reason, I want to talk about Harlem Berry first. Look, he's going to be the early enrollee, and we know about Harlem Berry, right? I mean, he was explosive in high school. He's the number one running back in the country coming out. You got Caden Durham. You have Caleb Jackson. Those are really the only two returners. I mean, Josh Williams is moving on. You no longer have a John Emery. What do you want to see from Harlem Berry?
Harlem Berry is one of those unique talents, right? I mean, you talk about just, electrifying speed in the open field. He's a playmaker. I mean, he's just got that special gear. He's going to be one of those type of guys, like LSU. He's not like the big 230-pound running back, every down back like we've seen in previous years from other five-star backs like Leonard Fournette in the past for LSU. But this is a guy that can change the game in any given play. So he can be like a gadget guy. You can do tosses with him, jet sweeps, screens, just give him the ball in the open space. And I really like JT Lindsey as well coming in. That's another freshman that comes in the sign class at that running back position. So this running back position is looking much better in terms of just overall depth. And, we got two guys that JT Lindsey, he could be an every down back. And you sprinkle that in with Harlem Berry, who has that ability, like a Reggie Bush, just to take over a game, and he's just a human highlight reel. But if you add those two guys together, you all know what Cam Durham can do. So he just needs some rest. I mean, he pretty much was the LSU running game last year. So if you can get anybody to help complement that, give him some rest, I think they can do that with two freshmen that can play a lot early on.
So, I kind of talked about this to open the show earlier because, look, you got Harlem Berry and JT Lindsey coming in. They're two of the best running backs in college football. You offered a preferred walk-on spot to Reed Chauvin out of Episcopal. Caleb Jackson, he had so much hype going around him coming into last season. He's kind of the forgotten man in this room. What do you expect from him in spring ball?
Yeah, I mean, really for Caleb, it's just getting down, just to really learn the offense. Just being able to stick to that, knowing what holes to hit, being patient. A lot of times, I just thought that he wasn't patient enough. A lot of times, he was just running through the back of an offensive lineman, didn't really get to see the holes. I know he struggled a lot with that last year, and he also bulked up a little bit. So hopefully, the strength conditioning program can get Caleb Jackson just a little bit under. As far as leaning up him. Compared to last year, because he was playing bigger than what he should have been. So just getting him healthy and just getting him at a good weight to play with as well is something that they're going. I'm keeping an eye on with Caleb and see how he moves as well with his weight, because I know that was a problem in fall practice last year.
So look, Jace, we know that they have to replace Bo Davis. That's going to be a tall task. As far as position groups, though, going into spring practice, what is your biggest question mark for this Tigers team?
I would say, and this was actually the strength going into camp last year, is the offensive line.
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks with the offensive line. Anytime you have to replace two guys who are 4-year starters for you, or 3-year starters for you, and Will Campbell and Emory Jones, you have to replace those two guys. But you have to also replace two guys that were multi-year starters. They were there since the beginning with Brian Kelly, as Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier. You have to replace those two as well. And you really have one returning starter from last year, and that's DJ Chester. And, he struggled a little bit at center. So you were able to get a couple of transfers coming in, and Josh Thompson from Northwestern and Braylon Moore, who has started at center at Virginia Tech. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Do they move Chester to guard and put Moore in at center? Thompson looks like he's got the guard role, and is Tyree Adams, is he ready to step up and be the left tackle, or Garrett Nussmeier, who's going to be the right tackle? So there's just a lot of talent in that room. There's just a lot of untapped potential and a lot of question marks with that offensive line heading into the spring. And this is going to be a big year to see what Brad Davis can do with those guys.
Jace, before I get you out of here, look, a lot of people are talking about the pressure on Brian Kelly. It's is this the make or break year for him? Is this Brian Kelly's most talented team heading into a season?
I'm not sure about talented. I feel like it is getting more talented each and every year, but I think it's the most evenly just matched in terms of personnel just across the board, right? Like offensive line, you have some talent there. It's just the reason that's a question mark is just all those guys haven't started in SEC play. But you got talent there. And then you look at the defense, they're just building more and more pieces, better pieces in terms of their whole defense. And I saw with not only transfer portal, but the freshman class coming in, DJ Pickett was a big pickup as well in the secondary. So the secondary is shoring up a little bit, getting back to where LSU expected to be DBU. You know what to expect from the linebacking core. It's going to be as long as they're healthy, especially Harold Perkins, and what weeks if they can stay healthy, that's going to be one of the best in the entire country. In the front four, you had a lot of guys on the inside that played a lot last year too. So offensively, you got the skilled talent, you got the skilled weapons. Garrett Nussmeier comes back, so all across the board, that's a big reason why LSU is a big year for them, and they're projected to maybe make that next step in terms of competing for a college football playoff, just because how this is probably the most evenly matched personnel football team that LSU's had across the board since Brian Kelly's gone here.
Jace Lejeune, Gridiron Football. Jace, thanks so much for hopping on with us today, man.
Anytime, Taylor. Appreciate it. Have yourself a good one.
That was Jace Lejeune, Gridiron